Okay. Hi, it's your host, Brian David Delaney Starr, once again, with Kevin DEGADON. And of course, he's not just a poet. Kevin's got some pretty good political ideas and ideals about what's going on in the world. Kevin, we were talking about the situation. First of all, once again, show your beautiful face there. Okay, Kevin. And of course, we got Amy up in the background. There's Amy.
Hello.
Okay. Amy's actually an Egyptian, guys. So we're going to talk about a little bit. Look, see, there's Amy. Okay. Okay, but we're talking about this Egyptian situation, and please expound on it for us.
Well, which thing? Because I've been looking at it from many different angles. I guess I'm thinking from the standpoint of when a people that lived under oppression suddenly go through a transition in which the existing oppression is overthrown. First of all, well, this is, you're probably going to want to edit this, but I'm going to get into a number of different ideas.
That's okay. Do it. Let's go from that.
Brainstorm.
Okay.
Do you know the derivation of the word tyrant?
Give it to us.
People think when they hear that word it means dictator. That's a common germ perception. It actually has a bit more specific political meaning that goes back to the ancient Greeks. The term actually derived to a term that meant he who wrests power from a king.
Mm-hmm.
And what it actually referred to as someone who takes power, usually a demagogic figure, who wrestles power from an existing aristocratic establishment, a ruling class of aristocrats, monarchs, royalty, essentially, that have power from birth. And what essentially happens is the people who wrest the power from those with established power do so criticizing abuse of power, concentration of power, all those types of things in order to get people's support. But once they have power, the lust to grab the power causes them to, once in power, to actually further centralize and concentrate power beyond the point of the aristocrats or monarchs or existing or traditional rulers that they overtook.
Okay, so what's the point you're trying to make? Get to your point.
So basically the point is tyrant was a word warning against those who are actually taking power from a king that would actually become. So our founders often used the word in warning about themselves. They weren't even so much using the word tyrant against King George III. They were actually saying we could become the tyrants if we don't establish a balanced, enlightened governing system and maintain it. So basically, that being the warning, revolutions can bring good, but they also, in the sense of the French, can bring things that are very violent and troubling. But I'm thinking of it also from a global standpoint of this. The Middle East has had this false dichotomy or paradigm that we've been given that it can either go one of two directions: autocratic, secular rule, or extreme fundamentalist rule.
Okay.
And the notion of an enlightened governing system that is pluralistic and essentially free is something that basically was taken left off the menu because essentially the whole paradigm suggested that it wasn't available. The movement of freedom in Egypt refused to accept that paradigm, and they insist on self-governance. And they insisted that they can free themselves without attacking anyone else. And for that, they were able to completely change the whole conversation of governance in the Middle East.
And of course, because of the fact, I think, because of their positive sort of, how can I say, their positive reaction to such a verbose and such a blatant situation under the circumstances, they've received liberation, and the president is now out, and now the opportunity is there for them to rebuild, and hopefully, praise God, with the help of the other countries from the world and the people, our President Obama. You were saying something about Obama too.
One thing that struck me as interesting, the thing that I found most interesting, intriguing, and encouraging when I was watching the early reports, and this is before anyone really knew what the outcome was. Well, we still know the outcome, but the outcome to the point that Mubarak was stepping down. was how, one, that there was no sign saying down with America, down with Israel, and the kind of normal kind of extremist talk that we often hear in that region, that was not part of the present conversation, part of the movement. What also struck me was how there were signs basically quoting and paraphrasing Obama's election campaign of 2008. They used words like "yes, we can" and hope and the change, all the kind of the buzzwords that were. But usually, when you hear freedom movements or revolutionary movements in the Middle East, so frequently in the past, reference American power and American leadership or anything really related to this country, it's negative. It's that we're behind the forces of repression there. So to see signs quoting an American president in a positive light of saying we're like you, where we relate to what you were trying to do, it was telling. Okay. And what it essentially suggested is that for once a freedom movement, as it transformed part of a civilization, because there clearly was a cascading effect even before Mubarak stepped down, and that you saw neighboring governments voluntarily reforming out of fear that if they didn't, they would be next on the chopping block. So there was, like with when the Berlin Wall fell, there was that was my other parallel was Reagan. Because I was a kid when the Berlin Wall fell, and when you had the Solidarity movement in Poland, which was actually really the first drop that led to the cascading of the Berlin Wall coming, and then the reform movements and the collapse of the Iron Curtain. Reagan had a personal relation with Poland. The leader Lech Walesa, and who was head of the movement of revolution. Essentially, the goodwill between the Egyptians and Obama, and the possibility of this connection of identifying as opposed to what's the word I'm looking for? Better identify. We'll edit this later, but
persecuting or contorting or
no, actually, yeah, it's synonymous, not antonymous. I'm looking for what's the thing that they say psychopaths lack? Empathy, empathize, and connecting. That there was a sense of empathetic sense between American leadership and their governing situation, what they were attempting to do. That creates the possibility of new paradigms. So the interesting thing is Obama, I think, has the power to put all this together this year and say, when the anniversary of 9/11 comes, it's going to be very significant. It's going to be the 10th anniversary. And it's going to be, of course, on a year ending with 11, so the numbers are all very significant. He can say, we've approached a world that is finally opening to civil society, and we need to understand the meaning of civil society as it's growing in the Middle East, in a region of the world that seemed impervious to civil society in the past. We need, even here within our own society, blessed with basically the rubric of that and the tradition of it, to understand and save it for posterity in our own educational system.
I think that's absolutely correct and wonderful. Kevin, it's such a privilege to be here to interview. And of course, guys, once again, our President Barack Obama is so very important in history, but keeping support of our president is one of the most important things that we can do as Americans. And because if we don't support our president, how do you expect other people to support us? Okay, so you have to stand for Obama, whether you like him or not. It's not personal.
I love it.
It's business. Okay, and all of us, I tell you here, we love Obama. We love you very much, President Obama. We give you the most wonderful props and support. And in any way we can be of assistance or service to you, we will do all that we can to be in support of you. And also, guys, here's a point I'd like for you to consider. The Egyptian ex-president now, who's been ousted from office, guys, don't hate this man. Send out love and light from the depths of your heart so that this man can understand what he has done, and hopefully that this spirit of God and the spirit of righteousness and kindness, the morality spirit that exists deep within all of us, will be ignited not through your hatred, but through your prayers. And by doing this, hopefully he will be stimulated to give this money back to the system that he took it from and do something positive for Egypt. We'd like to say God bless each and every one of you, and thank you, Kevin, so very much for being with us on the StarQuest channel. You guys stay tuned. More information. We're changing the world, making the world a better place. Shalom.
You go, Brian. You rock, boy.